Have you ever had a neighbor who just wouldn't stay on his side of the fence? Well, in 1529, Vienna had the exact same problem, except the neighbor was the Ottoman Empire, and the fence was the city's walls. Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent decided that he wanted a new European outpost, and he showed up at Vienna's gates with over 100,000 men. The city's defenders, maybe 15 to 20,000 soldiers. Europe was a hot mess in 1529. Emperor Charles V was tied up with a Protestant rebellion and wars elsewhere. And France's King Francis I was secretly rooting for Suleiman, anything to undermine the Habsburgs. In short, no one was coming to help Vienna. The city was on its own against the world's most powerful empire. Suleiman marched out from Istanbul in the spring of 1529 with tens of thousands of troops, but torrential rains turned the Balkans into a mud pit, bogging down his advance. Flooded roads forced him to abandon his big cannons en route. Many soldiers succumbed to sickness in the cold. By late September, when the Ottomans finally reached Vienna, they were drenched, exhausted, and missing most of their heavy artillery. Suleiman still expected an easy win. I mean, after all, he had crushed Hungary in 1526, so Vienna looked like easy pickings. The Sultan demanded the city's surrender, but Vienna's defenders, led by a 70-year-old Count Nicholas Salm, flat out refused. They were not about to roll over. And so Vienna breached for impact. Its medieval walls were old and they were not very high, so Salm's men hurried to reinforce them with earth, timber, trenches, basically anything they could get their hands on. Everyone in town, from knights, peasants, shopkeepers, grabbed weapons and manned the walls. A few hundred Spanish and German mercenaries arrived to help. It was basically a DIY defense effort. By late September, the Ottomans had encircled the city and the siege began. Cannon fire thundered day and night. But without the giant bombards of Suleiman's artillery, it was more noise than impact. Vienna's walls held firm. The defenders even fired back with their own cannons and arquebuses. Next, the Ottomans tried to tunnel under the walls to blow them open from below. It's a classic siege tactic, but the Viennese were ready. They dug counter tunnels. It was like a cat and mouse game underground. The defenders discovered and blew up several Ottoman mines before they could breach the walls. In one daring sortie, a detachment of Viennese sallied out to attack the Ottoman sappers. They did demolish some tunnels, though many of these brave men did not make it back. As the days passed, Suleiman grew frustrated. The weather got colder and the city still hadn't fallen. His troops' morale was sinking. Even his top general, Ibrahim Pasha, nearly got captured in a skirmish. The Janissaries, which were elite infantry, started to openly grumble. Then more heavy rain came and drenched the camp, soaking Ottoman gunpowder, making their muskets and cannons useless. Inside Vienna, the defenders saw the struggle and took heart. They repelled every assault. In one fierce clash, the Viennese reportedly killed 1,200 Janissaries in a single defensive stand. The mighty Ottoman army was being worn down. By mid-October, Suleiman had a choice. He could either give up or he could go all in. He chose to go all in. On the 14th of October, the Ottomans launched a final all-out assault. First, they detonated a massive mine under the walls, blowing open a section of the ramparts. Well, sort of, because ironically, so much debris fell that it created a kind of makeshift barricade in the gap. Don't you just hate it when that happens? Still, through that breach poured waves of Ottoman troops. While others scaled the walls on ladders, this was the climax of the siege. The fighting was brutal. Janissaries swarmed the breach, and vicious hand-to-hand combat raged on the walls. Count Salm's defenders, including ordinary citizens, fought like their lives depended on it. Muskets cracked and cannons boomed amidst the chaos. After hours of carnage, the Ottomans fell back in defeat. Vienna had done it. On the 15th of October, 1529, Suleiman finally called it quits and lifted the siege. The magnificent Sultan, undefeated in so many campaigns, had been bested by the city of Vienna. his army trudged away, and then an early winter struck during the retreat, so snow and freezing cold ravaged the withdrawing Ottoman army, turning their retreat into a frozen hell. Many soldiers froze to death or were ambushed by local raiders picking off the stragglers. It was a miserable end to a miserable campaign. Vienna was saved, and Europe breathed a sigh of relief. This was the first major Ottoman defeat in their push into Europe. Suleiman's advance had been stopped cold, really cold. After another failed attempt in 1532, he abandoned the idea of conquering further west. The Habsburgs and Ottomans eventually divided Hungary between them, but the core of Europe stayed out of Ottoman hands. Now, it's crazy that this siege is not as famous as the one in 1683, because 1529 was just as significant. If Vienna would have fallen, the Ottomans would have gained a gateway into Central Europe. The course of history would have been changed. We might all be speaking Turkish, but thanks to the courageous defenders and some truly awful weather, that disaster was averted. So, the next time that you grumble about the rain, remember 1529. A little mud and rain helped to save the entire continent of Europe. If the weather would have been good, Vienna might have fallen. Would the Ottomans have changed the face of Europe forever? Well, leave a comment, let me know. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.